the inauguration of the Millennium Development Goals in the year 2000, the intention was to improve the social and economic well-being of people, especially in the developing world.
The Millennium Development Goals are structured, identifies the basic needs of individuals, of the poorest in our society, and challenges governments to try and work with society to fulfill these needs.
Different countries implementing the 8 MDGs have since been marching towards attaining set targets by its terminal date expected in 2015. Nigeria has shown commitment to the socio-economic engineering of the MDGs, and Plateau State, under the leadership of Governor Jonah David-Jang since 2007, has shown uncommon courage in ensuring the intervention impacts positively on the citizens of the state. The landscape of the 17 local government areas in Plateau State, especially rural communities, are dotted with one social infrastructure or the other. This ranges from school infrastructure to health and equipment, water and sanitation, and poverty reduction mechanism.
Virtually all the local governments have been considered in the MDG projects. And in the area of water, I know they have touched almost all the local governments they have covered.
The spread of those projects are done in such a way that at least each of the wards in the local government has either a primary health center built or a primary school built, as part of the intervention.
Before the intervention by the MDGs, we have technical assistance. One in the northern zone, one in the central zone, one also in the southern zone. And what they basically do is to do what we call baseline facility inventory and needs assessment. They form project committees in the local governments. The local government also go down to the communities where they propose to site this project and interface with members of the community. And it is the input of members of the community and also ability to give land to where the project will be sited that usually informs the siting of the project and the type of the project. So basically our own approach is bottom up. Rather than deciding for the people what they want, we usually allow the people to decide what they want and we key into what the people actually want. So for us in deciding a project, we take into cognizance the availability of land for us if it is in construction or borehole, also the willingness and ability of the community to give the land free of charge and the need for that project to be sited in that community. Usually we concentrate on 4 thematic areas.
All these have been possible through the unceasing payment of the MDG's counterpart fund by the Plateau State government.
We are up to date in counterpart funding, both state and local government contributions. We are up to date, we have not defaulted, and we've been getting our maximum releases from the MDG's office in Abuja.
On a comparative basis, when you compare Plateau State with other states, you discover that Plateau State is not doing bad at all. The funding, even though with the dwindling resources, I think the governor of Plateau State has tried to ensure that MDGs is not starved of funds. So far, the funding for the local government CGS Trac is the federal government usually gives 100%, the state government gives 60%, and the local government gives 40%. So for each local government, usually the package is about 200 million. The federal government gives 100 million, the state government gives 60 million, and the local government gives 40 million. And out of these 200 million, apart from monies for payment of village health workers, apart from monies for payment of consultants, apart from monies for payment of cooperatives, the rest is collapsed into projects in these thematic areas I have mentioned. So the local government track involves the 3 tiers of government: federal, state, and then local government. For us, the governor of Plateau State, it may interest you, has also paid the counterpart funding for 2014 local government track, which in no time we're waiting even for the federal government to pay their own counterpart funding, which in most cases is the reverse is the case.
The tripartite funding of the Millennium Development Goals by the federal, state and local governments is one partnership that is driving development at the grassroots in Nigeria. The implementation of the local government Trac conditional grant scheme for 2013 in Plateau State has further brought hope closer to the doorstep of rural dwellers. The 2013 local government Trac in Plateau State was executed with speed, precision and professionalism. The selection of the contractors was meticulous and the marching order unambiguous.
You have to pre-qualify before you go to the next stage of getting to be awarded a contract. So for those who are pre-qualified, means that they have passed through the processes. They are registered with the corporate affairs, they have evidence of doing similar work, they have shown the capacity, both financial and technical, of doing that job. And if we satisfy that one, and you are awarded the contract, you are most likely going to do a very good job. That is why we've had a very cordial relationship, because we've been very careful in the selection and we'll make sure that people who meet the criteria only are given the jobs.
So far in Plateau State, we've had interventions in about 13 local governments. And now they've added, under the LG track, they've added another 6. And we have added Jos North from the northern zone, Jos North, and Barkin Ladi from the central zone. Barkin Ladi is coming on board. Mongu is coming on board for the first time. Under the northern zone, Jos North is coming on board for the first time. We're repeating in Barkin Ladi, because all the local governments within the northern zone have had intervention as far as local government track is concerned. In the central zone, Mongu is coming on board for the first time. We're adding Kanke. In 2011, we had intervention in Kanke, and all the local governments within the central zone have had intervention in terms of local government track. In the southern zone, Wase has never been on board. We have added Wase and Shandam. So in Plateau State, by the time we complete these 6 additional local governments, we'll have intervened in all the local governments, with the addition of 2 local governments that we had hitherto intervened. So if there's another intervention under the 2015 local government track, I can assure you that some local governments will have intervention twice on the plateau.
As it has become customary with the coordinator of the Project Support Unit Millennium Development Goals, Plateau State contractors must be kept on their toes to ensure not only timely delivery of projects, but also according to specifications. Routine monitoring of the projects are regular, as the Plateau MDG's coordinator and his management team regularly visit locations where work was being executed. Contrary to the style of monitoring of projects by some government agencies, that of the Plateau State MDGs is inclusive. Apart from the MDG's monitoring team, They also involve authorities of local governments, traditional rulers, and community development associations.
One thing we were able to do is that, one, we made sure that we intensify our inspection mechanism. And what I did was that I made sure that I'm not the office sitting type. I go out from the foundation, I inspect. At the lintel level, I also inspect. At the roofing level, I inspect. So that if there are corrections, we make the corrections early before the contractors complete the project. Secondly, I made sure that I have DEX officers in all the local governments. So the DEX officers form an interface between the office and the local government and the contractors. And what I also did was that I bought machines, because most of the terrains are sometimes very difficult to be accessed by vehicles. So what I did was to buy motorcycles, and then gave the DEX officers cameras. So I can sit down in the comfort of this office and get reports from the field. Every month, they feed me with the reports, the pictures of the projects, the stages of the projects, and also reports as to the quality of the projects. So that also ensured that the projects were completed in good time. And also during inspection, we also make sure that we make it a holistic approach. One, we involve the local government chairman. Two, we involve the traditional rulers. Three, we involve the communities. And we tell the communities to also put pressure on the contractors so that they will finish the project on time.
One of the key areas of intervention is the primary school subsector, where the demand for infrastructure, learning materials and books is still huge. In few communities, they have never had classrooms, and where they existed, some were dilapidated with no desks and books for pupils. It is therefore a determined Barrister Peter Guy led Plateau State MDG's management that is focused on giving hope to the rural dwellers. Consequently, the management kept an eagle eye on contractors, and for the first time, some community leaders and local administrators came face to face with reality in some public primary schools.
This is the entrance of Class 2, and you can imagine that this is where students are taking their studies. It's a round hut, well touched of course, but you can see the ventilation is not adequate and the space is not adequate and there's no floor, and this is the blackboard that they have decided to improvise. Now you can compare with the structure the MDGs has done, and you will discover that at least it's a total transformation. Approaching Class 4, this is where the students take their lectures. That is Class 4. You can see it's a thatch house. If it's raining, I wonder how the students take their studies. There is no floor, there's no blackboard here, and yet it's a classroom. So you can compare, and you will agree with me that the federal, state and local government, and of course the MDGs, they have done well in intervening in the educational sector. You can see how beautiful this structure is.
The close monitoring of implementation of the primary school infrastructure resulted in quality work in communities that benefited.
Omba kuzaza baganda kuchuchesu. Tunagode machi coordinator na MDGs Plateau State. Kazana bumakyo mnazo akara wana. So, Akara,
muna da farin ciki da wannan gwamnatin da ya tuna da mu a nan a Dutse. Muna zaune a nan har wasu suna kiran mu kamar birori ne ko yaya ne, kuma ainihin cibiyar jawan kenan nan. Shi yasa kaga babanmu da kanshi ya zo. Watakila gari a can, watakila da ba zai ji ba. Don cibiyar mu kenan nan gaba ɗaya. Ina fata Ubangiji Allah da ya taɓo zuciyarku a cikin wannan gwamnati na Goodluck. Ubangiji Allah zai continue yana kula da shi. Mun karba gini nan hannu biyu kuma za mu lura da shi. Alkawalin da mun yi ba tsakaninmu da kai kaɗai ba, Mr. Cooperative, amma tsakaninmu da Allah. Za mu rike bildin nan. Kuma yaran da suke nan, wahalan da yara suna sha nan da rashin ajujuwa, kai gaskiya is now over. Mun gode.
Under the 2013 local government track, the intervention is holistic. Blocks of classrooms were constructed, books and learning materials provided, and the new school infrastructure have been commissioned for use.
To hand over to this school, these textbooks must remain in this school, and the pupils must use it for the purpose it is meant for. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. The books is a very significant part of the contribution. So I want these books to be used here. Not that these books start disappearing from here. I promise. You share with among the students. All right? Yes, sir. Good. So here you are. Hand over to you.
Across 12 local government areas under the local government track, classroom blocks were not only constructed but equipped.
I don't know how. That's so honestly, we appreciate what you did to us. We are lucky to have two projects in one district. We are not talking of this place alone, but we still want to add more. We want to ask for more.
The effort of the Plateau State Office of the Millennium Development Goals has gone a long way in complementing the steps being taken to improve on the provision of infrastructure, learning materials and books by the State Universal Basic Education Board.
Our relationship with the MDG has been very cordial. And from time to time we meet in the States, we relate with one another, they visit us, we visit them. And we talk on issues, in particular the areas of intervention in terms of infrastructure, so that we will not replicate the same structures in areas that do not need them.
On behalf of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably led by Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, the redemption governor of Plateau State, David Jonathan, and the chairman of Focus Local Government, Honorable Monde Kasam, it is my privilege and honor, to the glory of God, to commission this classroom to eliminate illiteracy in Ambang, and by extension Focus of Plateau State and Nigeria in general. I hereby commission it. Clap for yourself.
So the MDGs so far have been able to provide 130 blocks of classrooms for, as intervention in the education sector, and 9 VIP toilets, that is the toilets, those toilets that are being done. And then in terms of instructional materials, we've received, they've given our schools about 1,020 sets of instructional materials. And textbooks, a set of, that is textbooks, some reading materials, and even exercise books. Then MDG has provided about 12,000 56 dual decks for our primary schools. So the MDGs have done a lot in terms of intervening in our educational sector.
The provision of equipped health facilities is work in progress, as most rural communities in developing countries are far from some of them or completely lack them. The intervention of the Plateau State Millennium Development Goals under the 2013 local government track has given a boost to the health sector in Plateau State. From Bassa to Langtang South, Jos East to Kwanpan, Kanam to Barikin Ladi, and many more, dotted across their rural landscape, are either newly built or renovated primary health care centers. The MDG's intervention in the health sector under the 2013 local government track provides infrastructure, equipment, drugs, hospital consumables, as well as generators and solar power to enhance efficiency of grassroots health administration.
We have up to 11 of these 12 projects MDG in Langtang South. And to us as a local government, the first thing we will do is to appreciate the effort of the federal government under the able leadership of Goodluck Ebele Jonathan.
In addition, the MDGs plan to construct staff quarters in some primary health centers, PHCs, for prompt service delivery. The Plateau State Office of the Millennium Development Goals does not only make pronouncement, but also walks the talk.
As part of the assessment, so we want to thank you, and God will bless each and every one as we will commission this project in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
During the commissioning of its health infrastructure across the state, free medical services were offered in the 3 senatorial districts of Plateau State, with Jebu Bassa in Bassa local government for the northern zone, Mialchi Kanke for the central zone, and Mabudi Langtang South for the southern zone.
I appreciate the presidency. I appreciate our amiable, dynamic governor, Dr. Jonah Jang, for bringing treatment to the doorsteps of the rural dwellers. It's a promise he made, and all that he said, he has brought all in the lives of the people. I am sincerely grateful to the government of the day. By implication, he has done what he feels he could do for us. Therefore, we are ready and prepared to pay him back.
At the end of the exercise, over 8,000 patients diagnosed with different ailments were attended to.
I have never witnessed these things some times ago because I am over 50 here now. But it has never happened like this. For that, I want to start thanking the government of the day. I am saying I want to thank the president and particularly our father there, who deemed it very necessary to see that everybody touches and feels the government of the day. It's not about giving out money to everybody, but coming by your doorstep to give you medicine, treatment. I think
we appreciate the partnership between NMA and the MDG. I, for one, I know the motto of MDG, putting people first. And if we're putting people first, which is part of our corporate social responsibility as enemy, since we came on board, we've tried to do that. So when you wrote us, we said this is in line with the vision of enemy. We are in this as a Nigerian Medical Association to ensure that as part we sacrifice our time, despite our busy schedule, at least to give something back to the society, those that are less privileged. When you're talking about the people in the rural areas that cannot access some of these specialists in youth when they come.
Government of Plateau State and for local government, to the glory of God, I wish to commission this clinic for the use of the community in Mongoro Ugu, and to the glory of God, I hereby commission it. Thank you.
So far, the Plateau State Millennium Development Goals Project Support Unit has made significant contribution in the health sector in the state, as over 100 village health workers have been trained to fast-track basic health education in communities. Water is life. Indeed, before the intervention of the Plateau State Office of the Millennium Development Goals, many communities found it difficult to access potable water, thereby making them vulnerable to waterborne diseases. Though many communities still lack the essential commodity, areas where the MDGs has intervened are now better off as water gushes out from installed hand pump or solar-powered boreholes.
We are partners in progress. Despite the fact that this agency statutory responsibility is to make provision of safe drinking water and good sanitary facilities for the state. And MDG have come in to give in a support through the, can I say, the grants that the federal government has given, but they have covered a lot in the state.
Under the 2013 local government Trac, hand pump boreholes have been provided, while solar-powered boreholes are in place.
In fact, what we normally do is not to hand it over to the local governments. We hand it over to the communities. And for hospitals, there are hospital management communities put in place by the communities themselves to manage the hospitals. The drugs that we give them, usually they are revolving scheme drugs. They are not expected to be given free. The hospital management committee, usually constituted by the communities, will make sure that these drugs are fully utilized, and also they are able to recoup money from the drugs that they have given, and then to also purchase. So you can see that since it's revolving, there will always be drugs in the hospital. And the advantage of handing over the projects to the community is to ensure that the community owns the project as if it is their own, because actually it's their own. And we tell them that this project is their own. So if there's any problem with the project, they quickly mobilize themselves. They don't run to the local governments. They quickly mobilize themselves and ensure that the maintenance is done so that the projects are not wasted. So for sustainability, honestly, with the commissioning we're doing, we've ensured that at least these projects survive the tenure of the MDGs.
Poverty reduction remains important to the objectives of the Millennium Development Goals, MDGs, as the Plateau State Office of the Millennium Development Goals has given hope to target beneficiaries of the program in the state. After the meticulous implementation of the conditional cash transfer to some of the poorest of the poor, the Plateau MDGs, as part of its exit strategy, formed them into cooperatives which were taken through training for self-reliance and sustainability.
dalilin da ya sa za mu sake koyar da shi shine ba mu son mu gama mu tafi nan gaba mu ci gaba da cewa noma tushen arziki ne ba. Muna son in muka gama mu san kuma mu amfana da shi cewa noma arziki ne ba wai tushe. Mun san tushen ne amma kuma za mu yi arziki daga shi.
In ka sun kwaye masara ka ce masara ka sar masara kuma masara ina farin shi. Ta mu sai cewa wani noma ne in an yi shi zai taimaka rayuwa. No! Za mu na koyarwa mu san cewa in ai noma nan fa ba wai noma da kada fa ka je ka yi noman dankali ka noma dankali in ya biya yawa zurba ya ne zai da sarrafa abinda Allah ya bamu muka noma ya za gyara shi zama da wani kuwa mu kada cewa gaskiya fa idan kana noma idan kana kiwo ya zama da amfani